Okay, thank you. You do have a rainy day fund, but you don't advertise it. You still have the ability to spend money from that rainy day fund if you do an additional appropriation. So even though you have not advertised a particular amount for the year for the fund, you still have the ability to expend dollars from there. One more. Education fund expenses include salaries and fringe benefits, programs like high ability, special education, summer school, career and technical education, remediation programs, your guidance counselors, guidance counseling service, nurses, speech pathology, classroom supplies and equipment, and educational media services. For some of those that have been around, none of you have been around as long as I have, but there used to be a general fund, and the education fund is part of that. These are typically what would have been general fund expenses before. Education revenue comes from the state basic grant. So there are no local tax dollars, no property tax dollars included the basic grant. And you also have money from honors, designation grant, special education grant, and career and technical education grant. State basic grant for Tipton schools is based on the ADM of September 16th. So that's upcoming. It's the best guess is this budget was built on 1,430 students. I'll ask Dr. Glaze, still holding 1,430 or?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. That's extremely important that you are. Multiplied by the $6,235 per student. And again, that money then is generating $8,916,050. But it's also affected by your February 1 student count. So even if you get the basic grant at 8.9 million, if your February 1 enrollment goes down, you will lose some funding out of the state basic grant. Then there's the complexity index, and that's based on the October 1st of 20% of SNAP and TANF or foster care students. And a reminder, SNAP and TANF replace what used to be food stamps and welfare programs. Your particular number is 0.1145. That's the percentage multiplied by $3,775. That also generates an additional $309,052. So that from the basic grant, you have a total of 9.5 million and change. Then you have your honors designation. I won't read each one of them, but basically there are academic honors diplomas that come to students, and it's based on last spring's graduates. There are 4 different categories. There are those with academic honors with Core 40, those with technical honors, and then it's divided up between those students who are receiving TANF, SNAP, or our foster care children. Those students generate an additional $400 per student. So your funding based on the number of students you had last spring receive academic honors diplomas, that's an additional $64,600. Special education grant, that's made up of the number of students for the December 1 count. So I always hate to say, well, it's our best guess today, but our best estimate today of what students will be enrolled in December, special education in different categories, severe disabilities, mild, moderate, communication, homebound, and preschool. Those all generate specific dollar amounts. Your funding anticipated for December would be $779,720. Career and technical ed, based on the students enrolled in what our vocational classes used to be, home ec, industrial arts. Now it's, I'm not even sure what home ec is. I'm sorry, what is it? Consumer science and some business classes as well. So that includes 1 and 2 hour classes that students are enrolled in the first semester. This is based on first semester enrollment only, and they're weighted on the current demand in the workforce. So some classes generate more dollars than others, but based on the classes your students are enrolled in right now, you generate a little over $302,000. Again, that's based on the October count coming up very shortly, should hold stable. Then there's the local income tax. And you put the local income tax in your education fund. You have a choice of what funds to put it in. And you're supplementing your state dollars in with $169,714 from the local income tax to help support the education fund. So if you take all those together, you'll have a little over $10 million in revenue to fund the education fund. The operations fund is made up of the old transportation fund, bus replacement fund, capital projects plan fund, and then general fund operational, which includes the business office, which is the superintendent's office and the employees associated with that, human resources, utilities, custodial maintenance, and property insurance. Those used to be general fund dollars. And the reason the state now allows you to transfer money from the education fund to the operations fund is they recognize that that was formerly part of the general fund. So they say you can take the dollars from this fund and move them over. They also give you the ability to move them from operation to education, but typically it goes the other direction, so that it covers what used to be those expenses that were general fund expenses. Then the revenue that you get in the operations fund comes from CVET, which is commercial vehicle excise tax, financial institutions tax, and excise tax. Excise license plates, CVET, typically truck plates. Money transferred from the education fund. Currently you transfer, you would authorize $500,000 to be transferred from the education fund. Again, the state allows up to 15%. Local property tax, the state sets the maximum levy on the local property tax. And this year they've allowed the increase to be 5% over last year. And typically that's run anywhere from 3.4% to 5. 5 is the highest that it's been in, I think, the last 8 years. It says that it's based on the 5-year average of assessed value growth quotient. Really, it's a rolling average of the non-farm payroll increases. So if non-farm payrolls increase in the state over time, and you see 5%, hopefully that will continue to go up. That means we've had a strong economy over the last few years, so that's a good thing. You are impacted by property tax caps, and currently that's $492,265, which is a fairly significant number. When you look at your property tax maximum levy, which is just a little over 3.7 million, I believe, and you right off the top take away 492,000, that's a fairly significant hit. That varies over the state from corporation to corporation. I can tell you right now, I'm working with a corporation that's smaller than you are, with a maximum levy of about 2.2 million. Their property tax cap is 39,000. I've also worked with corporations smaller than you are that have been hit by almost 1 million. So it's all over the board. I don't know what generates that in your district necessarily. There are some places that are affected by windmills, solar farms, that sort of thing, but I'm not sure what generates yours. So the current funding for operations with CVET, FIT, license excise, and transfer from the education fund, there's a little over $800,000. The balance then is funded by property tax. Debt service, that pays your lease rentals. The difference between lease rentals and general obligation bonds, which you just issued, is lease rentals are normally reimbursing a holding corporation that built a building or buildings, and you're reimbursing them. And then you have the GO bonds, which are general obligation bonds that you have, again, you just issued some this year. any fees you might have, like bank fees and trustee fees on top of that, and then unreimbursed textbook rental. The state allows you to collect any unreimbursed textbook rental from the folks that apply, that qualified. So in the fall, you submit your textbook rental for state reimbursement, and the difference that from that submission and what the state gives you, then they allow you to raise locally. And then by June 30th of the following year, you can transfer that back into your education fund. Try not to give too many political opinions, but it's basically the state allowing you to locally pick up what they have not picked up. Debt service is funded by CVAT, license, excise, and financial institutions, and then the balance is funded with local property taxes. And the CVAT, license, excise, and FIT are not equally divided between the two funds. You have about a 56% versus 44% division. I'll be honest, I have no idea how that ever happened. And again, it varies from corporation to corporation. It's been there for years. So the same percentage will apply this year. So your current funding for debt service with CVAT, FIT, and license, 247,000 and change, 248,000. And then the balance is generated by your property tax levy. You do have a rainy day fund, and that's funded by unexpended dollars from other funds, and there is no tax levy to support it. So that's why most people don't advertise it, because you're not tell the public we're not raising any dollars. So that's no sense putting out there. Your assessed value, and this is important. In 2021 paid 2022, your assessed value was 645 million and change. And in 2022 paid 2023, it's 730 million. So that's an increase of 13.1% of assessed value. That assessed value went up mainly because as homes are assessed, because of the home prices going up, that drives that up somewhat. In addition, farmland was assessed at, I believe it's $1,290 an acre. Now it's about $1,500 an acre. So that's going up. No, it's 15.
Oh, I mean for buy it.
Oh yeah, to buy it. No, this is just what they are assessing it on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you could buy a farm in Tipton County for $1,500, there'd be a long line with it. But that's what the assessment is, and that went down for several years. The last 4 or 5 years, that went down, and now it's beginning to come back up. So the scary part about the assessed value right now, you've got, I mean, 730 million is a great assessed value. I haven't looked at all your history, but I'm guessing it's never been that high. But the scary part is it may not be that high forever, and you really don't know. So you can't really place all your future bets on that assessed value, but you can expect it to hold for at least one more go round. Then I don't know what's going to happen to the price of houses, nor do we know what the price of farmland is going to do. We're at the mercy of good weather and good crops. The appropriations, this is your authority to spend money. It's not cash that you have to spend. It's just you have the authority from the state to spend money from your funds. I used to always have a problem understanding that it didn't have to be spent. You definitely cannot spend over this amount. So the appropriations for education are just over 10 million. And if you remember the slide where there is revenue, the revenue was about 10,850,000. So you look at that, and if it's my bank account, I'm saying I got revenue of 10,850 and bills of 10,812. That's a good year. The one caveat you have to remember is you're transferring $500,000 out of education to operations. And so that's not a balanced budget, but it's $400,000 less. Your education expenses, one of the things that, and again, you don't have a whole lot of control over these, but, and teacher salaries certainly need to go up, but teacher retirement went up 0.5% July 1 of this year. And so that was automatically built in, and that was your expense. There's no sharing from the state, just kind of an unanticipated, maybe it was anticipated, people knew last spring it was going to go up, but it's something that's here forever. It's another 0.5%, 10 million, or let's just say your salaries are 7 million of that, $35,000 a year that is going to go there. And it's not just teachers, it's your administrators, guidance counselors, superintendent. Their retirement was built into that as well. So the education went up. Your funding went up about just over 4%, and your appropriations went up a little over 5%. The operations, and these would be the advertised budgets. Again, this is $5,050,658, higher than last year. And some of the factors in that this year, you ordered another bus, which is, and it's an expensive bus, as they all are, $200,000. I built in considerably more money for fuel because already last year's budget is overexpended, and I have no idea what fuel's going to do next year, but even if it stays the same, the budget had to be increased. I'm hoping it goes down at some point in time, but I don't know that for a fact. Also tires and bus repair. You've taken on contract buses, and so you may have some expenses there that you did not have before. So those departments went up, and that's why that budget looks so high. And then debt service, $3,503,332, and that's again just the debts that you have. This is the one that I spent some time with, and I have difficulty wrapping my head around, but I think I finally got it. Because your tax rate, despite debt service going up, will go down. And it's partly because there are a couple of factors in there. Primarily because your cash balance has to go down, because it was written into law that you could only maintain it, you could maintain a cash balance of 50% of your first 6 months payment of any debt that was issued before June 30th of 2014. So as your old debt goes down, your cash balance goes down. Now, at one time, cash balance and debt service was extremely important because if you didn't get your taxes on time, June 30th, or all your tax draw on time on June 30th, you couldn't pay your bills. So they allowed you to have that cash balance. So if things are a little slow, and there have been instances where the local property tax did not get distributed in time and people had trouble paying their bills. It's just like your mortgage payment. You have to be able to make your mortgage payment. So that goes down. So that's a factor. There was a $900,000 there. Your maximum this next year is just over $600,000. So that's freed up $300,000. Plus your increased assessed value. For every penny you spend, or every penny in tax rate, you generate $73,000 now versus $65,000. So you're generating more dollars because of your tax rate and increased assessed value. Your cash balance had to go down, so you actually are going to have a lower tax rate on the debt service. That being said, Brian and I haven't rehearsed any of this, Dr. Blaze, I'm sorry. But one of the options you have, because you issued new debt in 2022, you've not made any payments, and there's an amortization schedule. The amortization schedule says you aren't going to start paying anything on principal in 2023 on part of the loan because of keeping your tax rate where you want it to be. But because it's going down, you actually can get a new amortization schedule, start paying down your principal in 2023, maintain a level rate, and begin paying that off. And that money that was being they capitalize the money for interest would be available to you to spend on projects that they were designated for. I think your projects, you had a couple different projects, I believe, 3 different ones. So depending on where that money was designated, you would still have some additional funds available for that. That's a decision you have to make. Give you a little, the timeline you're hearing is the 27th, I believe. You have to post that 10 days before. So you, between now and the 17th, that decision can be made. I mean, typically after, I told Dr. Glaze, typically after a work session, I like to be able to go in and click the button and say, here, we're ready to go. But you've got time to think about it. If you want to make a decision tonight, you certainly can do that. But you're, either way, we have time, but we don't have a whole lot of time. Now we're to questions. I'm already asking questions. So I guess at this point, are there any questions on the budget? Your tax rate can stay the same or it can go down a little bit. The one thing that you used to advertise tax rates, and everybody can remember, I think, the rate. I can tell you what the tax rate is where I live. I can't tell you what the levy is, but if the levy goes up, typically the rate goes up too, but your levy is going to go up, but your rate could stay the same. You can generate some more dollars for use in operations and debt service, but you can't generate any more for operations because it's capped. But for debt service, you can generate more dollars. So I guess that's a discussion to determine if you want to go there. We have talked with legal counsel, Department of Local Government Finance, Baker Tilly, and they all have indicated that's something you could do if you chose to.
Did any of those entities that you just mentioned have a recommendation, or do you have a recommendation?
It's strictly up to you. My recommendation is probably show my bias of being in education too many years, but the more money you can generate towards education, the better. I've lived in districts that took great pride in having the lowest tax rate around, and I got in trouble a time or two for saying I'm embarrassed that we spend less on our children than anybody else. That wasn't always popular, but that's really kind of my philosophy. It really depends on you and how you feel about levies and your tax rate.
So we've been approached by the mayor about a residential TIF that he's wanting for us to adopt this December. What is your opinion on that, and how would that affect this budget? We're talking about the tax rates and the levy. And
I don't believe you did in December. It would affect this budget, but
okay.
Going forward, it would.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of TIF districts,
Okay.
as I would say most superintendents would tell you.
Do you have some reasons you could tell us?
Well, TIF districts don't generate a whole lot of money for your district. I believe I drove by a fairly large industrial plant on 28 and 31 that is in your district. And I doubt that it's generating a lot of tax dollars for you. But that's kind of what I expected. And so the same thing, I understand the concept. The concept is trying to bring people in. I mean, TIF districts out there, that plant that's out there certainly has generated jobs for people and generated income for people. And that's a good thing for your community. I'm sure there are a number of people in your community that work there. I don't have a number, but okay. Oh, didn't mean to go there, but so yeah, so that's the concept, that it will generate jobs. Well, and the concept of TIF districts for residential is it will bring in housing, which will bring people, which will increase your enrollment. And as you well know, about the only way you can increase education funding now is to get more children enrolled. I mean, you have a couple of choices. It's you have more kids coming in, you have more kids involved in CTE, which doesn't generate enough to I mean, it helps, but it doesn't turn the whole program around. Or you go to that word that I hate to even say, I'll just say it starts with R, and that can generate more money as well. So you have to have more children come in, and that's the idea of the TIF, that you're going to get more houses, and those houses will have children that will come to your district. I don't think it's panned out for many districts. I'm not an expert on TIF. I'm just, I'm thinking.
But we appreciate your opinion.
Okay.
Is it possible for us to receive this?
Sure. Sure. Yep.
If I didn't make note of the word "and," so I won't say the correct one, but the option that you gave us to generate additional dollars, keeping the tax rate the same, how does that impact our taxpayers? Does it in the option to generate the additional dollars that you just said? I'm sorry.
Those dollars will, if it's still spread around among your taxpayers. So there's more dollars being paid, taxpayers will pay more dollars. Because the number of taxpayers is not going to increase. It's going to be divided among the same number of people, and you're going to generate more dollars amongst those people. So they're going to pay more money.
I assume that's what TIF does as well, is you're taking those houses out of the pool.
Yes.
So again, if we TIF, that would make taxes go up as well.
I don't know that it would make them go up a great deal.
Okay.
Because those houses that are in TIF or where you're proposing a district, I don't know that they exist right now, do they?
Some of them do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then yes, that would have a negative impact on other people.
Or just taking to how many houses are torn down, I guess. So if you're not replacing those houses, then it would still be a smaller pool. I mean, if we lost 10 houses this year from fires or just torn down, and then we built 10 houses, but they're at the TIF, we wouldn't.
Yes,
You're
you would
not
not
making that up,
capture the
you're still
dollars. Yeah, the dollars that you were getting there won't come from the TIF district.
I just suppose a little more clarification on understanding the amortization of funds, because if I understand correctly, we're not making any payments. So if we pay on the principal, we're just capitalizing on the savings from interest, correct?
Yes.
So then how does that transfer out to a taxpayer if the funds are already, I mean, are they having, because they're paying earlier than we have to, or where does that?
Right now, if you're not paying any interest, you're not making a payment on one of the bonds.
Yeah.
You would then be making a payment on the bond.
Okay, so the money's not already, I would say, the money's not already coming in.
No,
before that yet.
that money isn't there at all. That comes from your tax bond. It basically is like making a payment early when your payment's early. Okay. Huh? Well, it's not easy. I had an awful time.
That money was already coming into
No.
like debt service
No.
within that fund, and so instead of holding it, we were, but no.
No, there's less revenue right now because of the drop off of those others, and this would raise it back up where your rate was.
Which is going to happen in this first period.
Yes.
Anybody have any more questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next item on our agenda for the work session is to review the regular meeting agenda. Did anybody have any questions or anything on that?
letter you have on top is actually from the city of Tiffin, and this is regarding a meeting for all of the taxing units and neighborhood associations. This is in regard to the proposed residential TIF districts. So that is on October the 11th at 3 p.m. And so I got the certified mail, I think, on Monday. And so yesterday, like it's already been a week. And so anyway, so that this is general information for you. This is all that I have at this point, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware of this opportunity, and also they sent one to you.
I got it.
You have it. Okay. Also, just like we've normally gone through the bus replacement plan, so this is also that document. Nothing real earth-shattering. It's already information we discussed, and when we approved the purchasing the buses early, so we could make sure we get them on time. So nothing has changed with that, but that is so that's just the documentation that we will have to send into the DLGF. They'll just kind of check it off. They don't really care either. So, but and then the capital projects plan, and this is very much like what we've approved in the past. And again, this is just a matter of projecting out where we think we could need some large capital improvements. Just because it's in this plan doesn't mean it's what we do. It's just a matter of we have to present a plan, and we have to make sure that it's submitted to the DLGF, and then we can pay, whatever seems to come up. You never seem to know when that boiler is going to die. For that. So anyway, that's basically what is in this folder. So again, the capital projects and then the bus replacement. So if you have any questions about that, please just let me know. And then that general information regarding the meeting about residential districts.
There's going to be a public hearing on both these and the budget on the 27th.
That is correct. There will be a public hearing to adopt those, the bus replacement and capital projects plan. That'll be in
They have any questions for Dr. Blaze on that? All right, next item on the work session agenda is public comment. Do you have anyone wishing to make public
Seven. Laura, was there anyone on the sheet signed in back there? Okay, would you mind?
You're good.
Mrs. Stott, you're up first.
Yeah.
I kind of heard you talk about the public hearing on the 27th for the budget proposal. And I'm guessing tonight you're going to okay publication, right? So
The
we're
advertisement,
thinking about-
yes.
Okay, and then there is a public hearing coming up, right, about collective bargaining.
Yes, yes, yes.
If I missed it because I don't get the paper, and
Mhm,
something about it put in. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other avenues I can go to find that information, or I just have to find someone to set the date?
The public,
Well, did you put anything out about like the topics for the collective bargaining?
essentially what it is we have to receive public comment on bargaining. So there's really not anything specific. If you just have questions about bargaining and about, teacher pay, you're welcome to come and you can add in that
Kind of,
comment.
I don't know,
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that is, it's been in effect for a couple of years now. But it's just a matter of making sure that the community is aware that we are beginning collective bargaining. There is an agenda, but essentially it's just, yeah, I mean, I'd be glad to share that agenda with you. We have not put that on the website yet, but likely
Okay.
will, yes.
All right, and really quickly, this past year, they did the 360 behavioral assessment tool. And my understanding is that they're not gonna use it this year, but nothing's been decided on what's gonna replace it, or they're just not doing it all.
We are not doing one. Yeah,
There's nothing to replace it.
No.
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you. And next on the list is Chris Courtney. With nothing else to discuss on the work session, we will adjourn and re-adjourn our regular session at 6:30. All right, it is 6:30 and time to call our September board meeting of the Tifton Community School Board of Trustees to order. I've asked Mrs. Hummercow to lead us in the pledge, so please stand.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jen. Next item on tonight's agenda is comments from the community. And we only had one, I believe. Mrs. Tong?
Thanks, Dr. Blaze, for reaching out to me about my questions. I appreciate that. Just real quick regarding the graduation requirement policy. On the first page, under the drafting note where it says a plan is a requirement, however, it's not mandated to be part of the corporation's graduation policy. I just want to understand we're making it part of the graduation policy though, right? Okay, gotcha. And so I'm understanding this to mean that because it's not required to be under the policy, but now it is, that the board or at some point can always revise or do that kind of, okay.
Well, I'll be honest with that. It's more about what the state is dictating than
Yeah.
really what the local board. The local board can always add more.
Yeah.
What that is just the minimum.
Gotcha. Okay. And the next, for the graduation plan shall be developed in consultation with the student's school counselor. That's not meant to imply that it'll be decided by the counselor after consultation, right? It's the other way around then. Gotcha. Okay. Under C, where it says subject and skill areas of interest for the student, obviously this can change, 8 years ago, my daughter wanted to be a Disney princess, so it can change. It can change.
You never know.
You never know the skill. Yeah. So obviously, this is why it's always being evaluated. The path. Gotcha. Okay. And under E, where it mentions aptitude, how is that measured? Is that just from collaborating yearly on the pathway, or is there tests, or?
Every student is now required to take the SAT.
Okay.
And so that would be when they're speaking of aptitude, that would be the SAT. Now, they do not have to quote unquote pass the SAT, which I often wondered how you can do that with an aptitude test. But
Well, most adults today pass it.
Yeah. And but it's I'm just being smart
Yeah.
actually. But
I got you.
But anyway, that's yes. So they don't have to pass it. They don't have to
They just
pass
have
the
to-
SAT.
gotcha.
They just have to take it.
Okay, which brings me to my next, under G, where it says an indication of assessments that the student plans to take voluntarily. And the SAT is listed there. So if they need to take it but not pass, but it's listed as voluntary, then that would be my question. Why would it be required to be part of the path if it's listed as voluntary? But you're saying that's going to be changed to required.
They are required to, with, I believe, last year's freshman class, I believe they're required to take that.
Gotcha.
But they also have other tests that they can take as well,
Mm-hmm.
which would be like an ASVAB or an ACT. So they do have a little bit of flexibility there.
All right,
as
and
far
what
as-
would the results be used for other than measuring their aptitude? Is it for like data collect, like, school
It's really not for-
evaluation?
it's really not for the school as much as it is to determine where they want to go as far as their pathway. So if they want to go to a four-year college, there may be a specific goal that the student's looking at. A lot of universities have gone away from taking the SAT. Again, they'll have that information, but we're not necessarily using that aptitude test to determine where they need to go or what they need to do as a senior.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Can I just ask a really quick question about the disability part? Not that my kid qualifies under that, but the section where it says if this, a student scores in the 25th percentile or lower about, changing the qualification, is that a state requirement or is that something we've put into it? Because my concern is that, especially with disabilities, back in the day, my dad would have been under this for severe dyslexia. And had he had followed this pathway, today he would not be on the Wall of Fame for his contributions to the treatment of breast cancer back in the 60s and 70s. So I'm just putting it generally out there. I just kind of want to make sure the message to these kids is what they can't do, but what they can do.
Yeah, again, part of that portion is what the state is requiring, and it would be more for those students that are severely disabled, as far as maybe low functioning or that type of a student. That's really would fall into play in that situation. And what it also allows us to do is some types of accommodations for students that have disabilities that will allow the test to be in a different setting, or to have some additional time, or to have, I don't think they allow any parts of the SAT read, but would allow them to have some accommodations while taking that test.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item is the consent agenda, and that is the approval of tonight's agenda, approval of the minutes from the regular session on August 8th, 2022, executive session August 8th, 2022, approval of claims for payroll August 19th, 2022, payroll for September the 2nd, 2022, and accounts payable claims for September of 2022. Approval of the personnel report, and I will read that when we get to it. Also approval of some overnight field trips, the FFA soils judging team on October the 14th and 15th, FFA SOAR conference on October the 7th through the 9th, FFA fire conference on November 4th through the 6th. And we don't have any donations this month, but I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Any second?
Second.
All right, approval of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up on the agenda tonight is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Glaze,
Personnel.
if you can get,
Personnel.
oh, I'll read the personnel, sorry. Resignation, certified staff resignation of Adam Armstrong, PE teacher at the high school, recommendation of Amy Marshall, health teacher at the Tipton Middle School, and transfer of Dan Cozino from the health teacher to PE teacher at the Tipton Middle School. Classified staff resignation, Lori Bannon from TMS-TES cafeteria. Reassignment of duties, Tristan Comer from District Permanent Sub to Elementary Title I Middle School Math Interventionist. Danielle Adams from Elementary Assistant to Middle School Assistant. Transfer of Dawn Benefiel from Corporation Treasurer to Office Manager Accounts Payable. Recommendation, Talon Stuber, Athletic Maintenance Corporation. John Fowler, Recess Assistant, Tipton Elementary School. Ashley Sampson, Kindergarten Assistant at Tipton Elementary School. Sandra Sorrell, Bus Driver for the Corporation. Ashley Tragesser, Custodian, Tipton Elementary School. Mackenzie Barlow, Special Education Bus Assistant, Tipton Elementary School. Roger Hendricks, Custodian, Tipton Elementary School. Brooke Cleaver, Corporation Treasurer. Termination, Jenica Easterly, Cafeteria Middle School. Elizabeth Smith May, Tipton Middle School. Vestino Rico, Cafeteria Tipton Middle School, and medical leave of absence for Julie Westner, a library assistant at the high school. ECA staff resignation of Carrie Capshaw, National Honor Society at the high school. Adam Armstrong, varsity softball head coach at the high school. Mark Barker, wrestling coach at the high school. Recommendation of Kim Warner as senior class sponsor at the high school. Now we're ready for the superintendent's report. So turn it over to Dr. Glaze.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. We are lots of good things going on. As we've spoken a lot in these meetings as well as other meetings, we are investing a lot of time in professional learning communities, and they are all up and running in all of our schools, and we believe that this is one of the best ways that we can push initiatives forward and create an atmosphere of collaboration in our schools, and we feel like that we're making really good strides in those areas. And so we're very pleased that they're up and going, and we already are seeing a lot of great ideas coming out of those professional learning communities. Again, when you are providing the opportunity for a lot of folks to have a voice, it really does allow for some big improvements. So we're excited, and we continue to invest in this process. And I just feel like that this is something that's just going to get better and better. One thing that Mr. Jaworski and I are going to do is we're actually going to start doing a podcast, which is going to be called Into the Blue. And essentially what this podcast is just like a mini professional development that we want to endeavor to provide for staff and others. So our first one will be about growth mindset and about kind of shifting our mindset, really working to improve how our students think about themselves, how our staff think about their approaches to teaching. So we are going to start that here in the next week or two. So I will forward that out to you, and you can enjoy the show and the bantering back and forth from Scott Jaworski and myself. It'll be exciting. Right, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. Really.
Is that monthly?
I don't know. We haven't really decided how often
Okay.
that's going to be. More or less, it's going to be how much time it takes for us to put it all together,
Okay, fair enough.
honestly, and then we'll determine how that's going to work. I am very excited. This last week, several of our students were involved in the Tipton County Youth Leadership Academy. I was very fortunate a year ago to be part of the Leadership Academy for Tipton County. I was in the first class, and really a great opportunity to get to know some people in the community, and also to understand that we are all individuals, but when we're working together, we can make some great things happen. So Keegan Schmicker and I really wanted to see this offered up for our youth. And so luckily we were able to get a grant from the foundation. And so we were able to begin this Tipton County Youth Leadership Academy, which is a combination of both Tipton and Tri-Central students. And where we're looking at, how to grow our leaders while they're still in school, and how to help them to make a difference in their community. So one of the processes that this group will go through is developing, finding a need and then developing a solution as part of that, and to really become community leaders. So it's going to be a great opportunity. Schaefer Leadership from Ball State is leading it, so it's high quality, and it's very well done. And again, I just think it's going to be a great opportunity for our students. Enrollment trends. It is that time of year, and I need to scoot this over, I think. Well, maybe. Once again, it's been a great technology day. Okay. This is not good. There we go. Okay. So this is kind of our trend data for the last few years. And we're always looking at numbers, and we're always looking at where we're growing and where we may not be. One thing that I find is really significant, that the red numbers at the bottom, that was the state projection. And the state projection has us at 1,310 students. As you can see, we are far bigger than that, which is wonderful. So we are up a little bit in enrollment from the year before in the fall, and we do have really strong numbers with our preschool. I was very happy to see we had 117 kindergartners. That is definitely a step in the right direction. If we can continue with that number, we will be in really great shape. So I'm pleased with that. I'm pleased with where we are right now. Again, things can change in a couple of days. So as of this morning, this is where we are. So we'll see. And again, for those of you that were here to learn about the 2023 budget, the vast majority of our funding comes from per pupil dollars that we get from the state. So enrollment always matters, and so again, it's nice to be on the positive side versus the negative side, as we've been dealing with the negative side for a long time. Also wanted to dive in a little bit deeper to what John was talking about earlier in the work session. The numbers that are continuing to go up. So the number of students that we have getting honors diplomas is increased, so therefore our funding is increasing in those honors areas, so that's a great thing. We have had a bit of an uptick in the number of students who have qualified for special ed. Some of that has a direct correlation to the pandemic and just some struggles that have been that have just happened as part of that. One number that I am very pleased with is you'll notice the CTE funding, and once again that comes from our investment in our ag program, investments in computer science, investments in those courses that we know A, our kids need, and B, we are able to get big funding dollars from the state. So we are very intentional at looking at those high demand, high wage areas that we can get a lot of funding for, and also provide a great opportunity for students. So I think that that's an encouraging number, and actually I think that number is a little low. So I think that will actually, when everything, again, as John said, that count does not go in until October, and when we get that October count, I really think that figure will be higher. Now that goes directly into what we get per pupil from the state. So it's not something that we can necessarily pull out or do anything like that. That's just what is part of our overall funding. We did get our permit approved by the DNR. There was a meeting yesterday with Schmidt and R.L. Turner, and we will be starting to move dirt here fairly soon. It's just a matter of getting everybody coordinated to get back and to do what needs to happen. So you will be seeing some progress in the student parking lot, so that'll make people happy and makes me happy, I know. And so that's a great thing. A little bit of an update on the elementary, and this was kind of one of those unpleasant surprises. We do have, well, long story short, is we have some sanitary pipes that evidently don't have the correct slope or flow in order to drain. And so unfortunately they have disintegrated, and the bottoms of them have disintegrated. So we are going to have to do some digging up in the hallways in order to replace those pipes. Not something that we're real thrilled about, but it's something that we want to take care of now, because there's no point in putting in brand new restrooms and sending all of that to the pipes that don't work. So anyway, right now it doesn't appear to be causing issues, but we want to make sure it's done right. So so that's been a little bit of a hiccup. That's going to delay a little bit of what we're doing in the media center, but they are moving as quickly on it as they possibly can.
Will that affect student traffic much, or student activity, or
we will have to block off the hallway, 2 hallways down for about a week. And then what they will do is they will go ahead and pour terrazzo, that will be a patch. It's going to be rough. It won't be like it won't be uneven or anything like that. It'll just be kind of a rough surface because the sanding of the terrazzo is what causes the most mess.
Okay.
So they're going to try to eliminate a lot of disruption, but there is going to be some disruption. So, but again, we have another hallway or two that we can move the students through. So it's just to be that one hallway that'll be blocked. Yeah. And then really things are going well with the science and robotics spaces in the high school. And we are beginning to meet every couple of weeks to start planning for the middle school. And we will share those plans out with you as we are moving forward.
Surface and stuff, does that require warm weather to put those in?
The post-retention tennis courts, which is what we're putting in, does require what's called winter conditions, and where they have to put in some additive into the concrete in order for it to, yeah. And so, so there is that possibility, and it really just kind of depends on the weather, where that will, if that will be an impact or not. As far as the paving, the hope is to get that done very soon. And
So you'll have a parking lot before you.
yes, we will have a parking lot before we have tennis courts. The tennis courts will be done this fall, but it'll just be later. It'll be more like November probably when the tennis courts are done. And hopefully the weather will stay nice. That's really going to be in our favor. So pray for warm weather. So it'll just make it a lot better, a lot easier. So.
One more question, Dr. Glenn. Could you give us an update on the status of the greenhouse construction?
We are near completion. I signed off on a change order this morning, which is what I've been told the final step. So we do have a meeting tomorrow, and so everything but the signage, I think, is ready. So that's very much a step in the right direction. But I don't want to say that and be in that call tomorrow and they say, oh, it's gonna be another 2 weeks, because it's always 2 weeks. So yeah, but as I'm sitting here right now,
Okay.
that's what I think is happening.
You don't have to have a final walk date or anything like that.
We should be arranging that tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, we should be.
So hopefully we'll have thoughts.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, let's hope. And honestly, the delay has been because we got some equipment that was defective and had to go back and reorder it, and it just is.
It is what it is.
Exactly. So just, again, that's one of those things. As far as change orders and anything like that, the greenhouse has been very smooth. Really have not had to deal with a lot of crazy with that. So that's been a very smooth process. We do have some new staff. Brooke Cleaver is here, and she's our new corporation treasurer. So you'll get to see Brooke. We're very fortunate. She has experience being a corporation treasurer and comes to us from the Howard County Library. But before that, she was at Western School Corporation as a treasurer. So we're very fortunate to have somebody, and she's very knowledgeable. And I just keep learning a lot from these people. So it's always good. Tom Lyday is up and working at our high school. He started last week, so he's already kind of making his presence known, I think. And then Amy Marshall is our new health teacher, and so she started this week. And so I feel like one of the things that's been really terrific, I feel like for the most part we have really been able to hire some quality individuals. So I'm very happy about that. And so once again, it's kind of weird to be hiring people right now, but it's the way life is, and we're just moving forward. Tipton Academy, those email invitations will be sent out next week. The people that we have selected for the academy for this next year were suggestions from last year's class. So the way we will move forward is as we graduate a class, we will say, hey, do you know somebody who needs to be a part of this? And they will give those names, and then we will turn around and invite those people to be part of the next class. So that should be coming out next week. And parent-teacher conferences, we are beginning to plan the parent-teacher conferences, which are actually October the 12th. So I felt like it was important for us to talk about that a little bit today. In grades 6 through 12, it's a little bit different, a little uncharted territory because we haven't been doing that. But what we are looking at is, and this is going to be maybe a little bit different in secondary, because of the volume of students that secondary teachers have, nearly 100 students in some cases, the teachers will be reaching out to the parents and requesting conferences. That doesn't mean that you can't request a conference, but they will be requesting conferences from students who they feel like need some extra help, and that bringing a parent in can make a difference, and hoping that will help spur along some growth. Information will be shared specifically through building newsletters, so I just encourage everybody to keep track of that. And again, I'm excited about the opportunity of really putting our customer service into action by having this school-wide parent-teacher conference day. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. And primarily, that's going to be a noon to 7 event, so we can kind of grab families at different times. Believe it or not everybody works on a school schedule. So. The next thing that we will be doing, and this is something that is actually brought to us by Sweetwater Music, which is up in Fort Wayne, and this is kind of a convocation that we are going to have our middle school and high school students involved in, and so it's the 9 strengths we all need in our life to support a positive mental health. These are the 9 areas. So they're going to talk about good sleep, exercise, diet, rest, healthy community, faith, gratitude, trusted adults, and serving others. So this will be happening in the auditorium. Like I said, this is something that has been highly recommended. So it comes from the Get Schooled tour. So you're welcome to take a look at that information if you would like to. Parents will have the opportunity to opt out if they so choose. And so basically, when we send this information out in each of the schools, and again, it's going to be high school, middle school, there will be instructions on how to opt out if a parent has a concern. And that's it. Sorry, that was kind of long.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is department reports, and you've had those in your packet. Director of Student Achievement and Learning, Mr. Jaworski. Director of Student Services and Transportation, Mr. Clark. Director of Food Service, Adam Prohl. And Director of Technology, Stephen Gingrich. So anybody have any questions on any of those department reports we had? Mr. Jaworski, do you have?
Yeah, there is one thing I just wanted to kind of mention, make known to the public as well. We will be doing another textbook adoption. We have one pretty much every single year. Last year was math. This year will be science. So if you are interested as a parent or concerned community member and you want to be a part of this process, see kind of how the resource adoption process goes about, you can either go to our district website and underneath the right-hand side on the main page, underneath the Ask the Superintendent, there's another item there that says apply to be on the adoption committee. You can click on the link there to submit an application, or it'll also be in each of the schools' newsletters this Friday. and that'll be open through the end of September. Again, you just answer a handful of questions, including some contact information, and you'll be a part of this committee. It meets about once a month, maybe a couple times around February, March, as we're kind of wrapping up decisions as far as the resource goes. But I will ultimately choose from that list of applicants that we get. I'll confer a little bit with Dr. Glaze, but ultimately we're trying to get a committee of community members, parents. We'll have school administrators, teachers, some tech specialists. Again, just trying to get a wide perspective so that we can make the best decision for our school community. There will be a committee for each building, high school, middle school, and elementary. So if you're interested, again, I encourage you to sign up.
All right, thank you, sir. Next item on tonight's agenda is the financial report, and Dr. Glaze.
For our financial report, it's been nice to be able to have a financial report. We have had some problems with that, and now we've got them fixed, so that's all great. In the education fund, we do have a $1.2 million cash balance. My anticipation is that will go down because we do have a September 3-pay month. So even though I'm very pleased to see that number, it's probably going to look a little different next month. So that's again, just kind of an explanation. In our debt service, we have a $1.3 million cash balance. In the operation fund, we have a $1.1 million cash balance. And the rainy day fund continues to be at 2.5 million. One of the options that I plan to talk to the board about here in the next month or two is regarding doing some investments with our cash balance in order to increase that a bit. And again, these would be safe. Just essentially, we would enter into an agreement with Fund Indiana, which is one of the funds that a lot of municipalities put their money into. And so we'll talk about that and make sure that you have a broad understanding of how that works. But it gives us a little bit of an opportunity to grow our rainy day fund just a bit. And also the best part about it, if say for instance, we won't be tying our money up for a long period of time. You can actually move it in and out of that fund in order to have some flexibility. So there's lots of pluses with it. And right now, it's a pretty good return on investment. So we'll be talking about that likely next month and working on a plan for that. And so just want to kind of give you a heads up there.
Okay. All right. Moving along on the agenda, we don't have any old business to contend with this week. So moving to new business, first item is consideration to approve the KSEC Joint Services Agreement, which is the Kokomo Area Special Education Cooperative. Tipton Community School Corporation has been a member of KSEC for a number of years. This is the annual agreement between Tipton Community Schools and KSEC that is presented for approval on an annual basis. It is recommended that the 2022-2023 agreement between Tipton Community School Corporation and KSEC be approved. You've had that in your packet. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Not, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve that agreement.
I move to approve the KSEC Joint Services Agreement.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding between IUK and Tipton Community School Corporation. Last spring, Tipton Community Schools and IUK entered into a partnership to offer the Tomorrow's Teachers program. Tomorrow's Teachers allows current Tipton High School students interested in a teaching career to attain transferable dual credit and foundations of education classes. Students are eligible for up to 12 college credits with an education major. Attached is a memorandum of understanding between Tiffin Community School Corporation and IUK, allowing for the participation in tomorrow's teachers. It's recommended the Board of Trustees approve the attached MOU. You've had a chance to look that over. Does anyone have any questions or comments on that?
Do we have students currently enrolled in this program at our high school?
We have one
One?
at this point.
Okay.
And we're obviously hoping to have more. But yes, so one at this point, but again, it's going to take a little bit of time. We don't anticipate that we're going to have 20 kids a year, but we'd love to. But if we can have 4 or 5, that would really be ideal for us. And so I feel like that'll happen once it gets more recognized, and kind of follows along with the whole idea of pathways. And if we've got students that are interested in teaching, that we can definitely steer them in that pathway in order to get to that level.
So with some of these credits, if they decide to not pursue that, would they transfer as well for other?
They would move. They would move to elective credits,
Okay.
possibly. I don't want to say that for sure, but possibly. I think so. Because these are actually specific credits for teachers.
Okay.
And when I started with way back like 1 million years ago, when I went to school, you take these foundation classes, which is basically kind of the history of education and basically some psychology of education, those kinds of foundation courses. And so whether they would transfer specifically into another major, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure they would go in as electives.
Sure. How are we getting this information? I mean, obviously the students, we tell them, but are we able to broadcast it to the parents as well?
Yes.
How-
And that will be one of the with the Triple E grant that we're a part of, and now that we have a college career counselor, that will be something that will be coming from her, as well as conversation with the students when she's meeting with individual classes right now. And so talking about the opportunities that we have. So if we've got a freshman or a sophomore, preferably we'd like for them to get started as a junior in this program. So freshman or sophomore that has an interest, then we would try to steer them in this direction. And the one thing that's super nice about this right now is with the Triple E grant, they don't have to pay anything. If in the future they may have to pay something, but right now it doesn't cost them anything. So it's a matter of, we just kind of wanted to really get our feet wet, and we really thought we were going to get 2, but we ended up not getting 2. But we do have the 1, and we're happy we have 1.
Any other questions or comments on that? Need a motion and a second to approve that.
I'm to approve the memorandum of understanding with the United States.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next is the rather lengthy stuff. Consideration to approve updated board policies and administrative guidelines on first reading. In late April of this year, Neola pushed out a series of updates to administrative guidelines and board policy due to new legislation enacted by the Indiana General Assembly in the 2022 session. An overview of the policy changes are included in your packet. You've had a chance to review those. Recommended the Board of Trustees approve all policy updates on first reading. And I will go through and read the policy numbers and basically what they are about. Policy number 1213.01 and 3213.01 and 4213.01, which has to do with staff and student relations. The other policies are policy 1216, 3216, and 4216, which has to do with staff dress and grooming. Policy 2221, mandatory curriculum. Policy 2260, non-discrimination and access to equal educational opportunity. Policy 2600, school accountability. Policy 5111, determination of legal settlement and eligibility for enrollment of students without legal settlement in the corporation. Policy 8330, student records. Policy 2370.02, flex program. Policy 5340.01, student concussions and sudden cardiac arrest. Policy 5460, graduation requirements. Policy 5511, dress and grooming. Policy 5772, school-sponsored student publications and productions. Policy 6110, grant funds. Policy 6114, cost principles, spending federal funds. Policy 6325, procurement, federal grants and funds. Policy 8500, food service program, and Policy 9150, school visitors. Administrative guidelines, AG 1530, which is procedure for evaluating the effectiveness of administrators. AG 2600, school accountability. AG 2623, testing program. AG 5463, admission of students from non-accredited schools. AG 9270, procedure for educating a child at home. AG 2221, mandatory curriculum. AG 2260D, notice of non-discrimination. Policy 5113.02, school transfer options. AG 5460, graduation requirements. AG 5460A, graduation examination. AG 5511, dress and grooming. AG 7540.04, staff technology, acceptable use and safety. And AG 9150, school visitors. Have any comments, questions on those?
Thank you for plowing through all of that. All of the, how about this and how about this minor, the blanks, et cetera. So that was a process with 30 of those. So.
Need a motion to approve those policy and administrative guidelines on first reading.
I make a motion to approve all of that on the first reading.
A second? Motion and a second to approve the policies and administrative guidelines on first reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, okay, thank you. And next is consideration to advertise the 2022 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan. 2023 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan were shared with the board during the work session held prior to this meeting. This request would allow us to advertise these items. Public hearing is scheduled for September the 27th, 2022. Board would then consider approval of the budget at the October 11th school board meeting. Recommended to grant permission to advertise for the 2023 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan. I think we had all of our questions answered pretty much in the work session. So I just need a motion and a second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Next up on tonight's agenda is other matters to come before the board. That's something, right?
I think just to kind of recap for us all that we discussed in a presentation at the work session needing to authorize Dr. Glaze to advertise maintaining the overall tax rate to not affect any difference what taxpayers will see. So I would like to make the motion to authorize the superintendent to advertise maintaining the overall tax rate as close to the current overall tax rate as possible.
Motion and a second. Anybody have any other questions about that? All right, motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next, to advertise or advise you, I guess, of committees coming up. September the 19th, personnel, is that still on? Okay, very good. October the 18th, the Student Achievement Committee will be meeting. November the 14th, Business Affairs, and December the 19th, Branding and Public Relations. Coming up, some of our scheduled events. September the 13th, the 2023 budget work session. Oh, that's today. September 19th, public hearing about beginning collective bargaining. September the 21st, Staff Professional Development Day, and students will not be in school that day. September the 27th is a special board meeting, or public hearing rather, for the 2023 budget. And October the 11th will be our next school board meeting. And with nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.